This story revolves around Frank Underwood, a sharp Democratic congressman serving as House Majority Whip. Frank's been the driving force behind President Walker's 2012 victory, so you'd think a high-ranking appointment was his for the taking. Instead, Chief of Staff Linda reveals that Senator Michael Kern is being named Secretary of State. Outraged, Frank and his equally ambitious wife, Claire, decide that betrayal is fuel for revenge. Now, Frank is planning for more than just the Secretary of State position. Zoe Barns, an ambitious reporter working for the Washington Herald, approaches Frank. In their secret arrangement, Frank manipulates Zoe by feeding her intel about his political enemies, while Zoe uses the tips to climb the career ladder. Frank decides to strike back by leaking details of an early education reform bill to Zoe, originally written by Representative Donald Blythe. After the leaked document is published in the Washington Herald, public outrage erupts as it proposes massive increases in government control of education. This causes a scandal on Walker's first day in office. Blythe steps down from authoring the bill and recommends Frank's name. So Frank becomes the one in charge of drafting it. Meanwhile, Claire makes a tough business call at the Clean Water Initiative, her environmental nonprofit, by cutting staff to fund international expansion. Peter Russo, a troubled alcoholic and congressman from Pennsylvania, is arrested for DUI with a prostitute in the car. Frank sends Doug, his chief of staff, to get Russo released illegally, planning to use him later as a political pawn. Throughout the series, we see business ties between Remy Danton and the Underwoods. Danton is a corporate lobbyist who provides financial backing to Claire in exchange for favorable laws for his natural gas company. During this time, Frank drops another bomb. Through Zoe, he plants a story tying Kern to an anti-Israel editorial from his college days. He sends Russo to pressure Roy Kopeniak, a former writer of the column, into publicly claiming Kern wrote it. This ruins Kern's reputation. Under media and public pressure, he resigns. Frank then feeds Catherine Durant's name to Zoe as a possible replacement. Zoe runs a story that builds public interest, and after Frank reinforces Durant's credentials with Linda, the growing media buzz helps secure Durant's appointment as Secretary of State. When House Speaker Bob Birch refuses to support Frank's bill amendments, Frank orchestrates a coup by shifting alliances. He uses Majority Leader David Rasmussen to pressure Birch. He also wins over Black Caucus leader Terry Womack, who controls a solid block of votes, by forcing Russo to give up a shipyard in his district to save a military base in Womack's district. Then, Frank blames the coup on Rasmussen and convinces Birch to replace him with Womack as majority leader. Frank and Zoe's relationship blurs personal and professional lines as they begin sleeping together. Claire learns about the affair but ignores it, for now, as their ambitions come first. Meanwhile, Russo is distraught over losing the shipyard and facing backlash from his constituents. One night, he shows up at Frank's door, drunk and desperate. Frank then orders him to strip naked and get into the bathtub, a humiliating command designed to break him down and lower his self-esteem. Then he explains Peter that he's the only one truly rooting for Russo, urging him to run for governor of Pennsylvania, if he can clean up his act. Without any other option, Russo agrees to the plan. Zoe, after clashing with her Herald editor Tom, quits and joins Slugline, which is another media-based institute. Frank's education bill angers Marty Spinella, the teachers' union lobbyist, who vows to resist. At the same time, Claire launches a fundraiser for her nonprofit's international expansion. Spinella retaliates by protesting outside Claire's event, accusing the congressman attending of backing her lavish international plans while ignoring underpaid U.S. teachers. Frank and Claire cleverly feed the protesters, flipping the media narrative. Furious, Spinella calls a nationwide strike. Frank escalates the battle. He stages a brick-throwing incident at his home to frame Spinella, then uses a school shooting to bait him into a Capitol meeting. Frank provokes him into punching him on camera and threatens felony charges unless the strike ends. With the education bill signed into law, Frank secures a major win, impressing the president. But Vice President Jim Matthews feels sidelined and starts voicing discontent. Frank uses this crack to drive a wedge between Matthews and the president. Russo visits Philadelphia, trying to win back support from shipyard workers who lost their jobs, but it's not easy. He also tries to clean up his image. Frank pushes a watershed bill linking environmental cleanup to education funding. Russo is heavily invested in this initiative, as it promises to create jobs for those who lost work when the shipyard shut down. For the amusement of everyone, the Watershed Bill fails by just 2 votes, delivering a rare defeat to Frank. He soon finds out that Claire secretly cut a deal with Remy, and even flipped 2 floating votes from their own Democratic congressman to sabotage the bill. Frank confronts Claire, furious. She blames his lies, especially the affair with Zoe. Then she leaves to stay with her ex, Adam, in New York. After the Watershed Bill failed, a frustrated Russo demanded a new plan and warned he might reveal Frank's role in taking down Kern. Frank decides it's time to end Russo's political career and sends Doug to take care of it. Doug then sends Rachel, the prostitute from the DUI arrest, to lure Peter back into drinking. Russo gets drunk and embarrasses himself during a live radio interview, ending his campaign. Meanwhile, Zoe turns to Lucas Goodwin, her former colleague at the Washington Herald, for a personal connection. Frank convinces Vice President Matthews to step down and run for Pennsylvania governor in Russo's place, clearing the path for Frank to become VP. Meanwhile, after destroying his own campaign, Russo falls into complete mental collapse. He fails to reconnect with his children and, still drunk, turns himself into the police for the DUI he was never charged for. Frank picks him up from jail, and after Russo threatens to make a public statement, Frank realizes he's become a liability. Pretending to take him home, Frank lets Russo drink more until he's nearly unconscious. Then, he drives into Russo's enclosed garage, leaves the engine running, and shuts the door, killing him with carbon monoxide poisoning. After several days,
Congressman Peter Russo was found dead early this morning in the parking garage of his apartment building in Washington, D.C. U.S. Secret Service agents discovered...
Claire, who had been away, returns to Francis after he texts her about Peter's death. As the vice president steps down to run for governor of Pennsylvania, the slot opens up. President Walker sends Frank to St. Louis to convince billionaire Raymond Tusk to take the position. But Frank quickly realizes it's not an offer. Tusk is actually vetting him. Tusk and Walker are old friends. Eventually, Frank is appointed vice president, just one step away from his goal. Zoe, Janine, and Lucas all suspect foul play in Russo's death. They investigate the uncharged DUI, Rachel's disappearance, and Doug's involvement. Zoe and Frank's relationship is now over. They try to contact Christina and Rachel, unaware that both are being quietly controlled by Frank and Doug. Frank texts Zoe, asking to talk. They meet at a subway station. Zoe brings up Russo's suspicious death and Rachel's disappearance. Realizing Zoe knows too much, Frank pushes her in front of a train. Janine later receives anonymous nude photos of Zoe, taken by Frank months earlier. Realizing it's a threat, she flees town and abandons the investigation. And that wraps up Season 1 of House of Cards.